Story title: AITAH for telling a coworker that I'll go to HR if they keep pushing the Christmas adopt a family on me. My job has adopted a family for Christmas, and there are many options to choose from to get gifts for each adult and child. The gift options have started to fly off the board, which is cool, but apparently, someone noticed that I haven't been joining the conversation about what option they chose or what to buy for a teenage boy or girl. I was asked if I chose something off the board, and I simply replied that I don't celebrate Christmas. The worker then said it didn't matter if I celebrated or not, that it was a time for giving and we should help those who can't do for themselves. Now, a little background on me. I grew up extremely poor, as in, when these holidays came around, it was nothing but misery for my siblings and me. Thanksgiving was just a normal dinner for us unless we were forced to visit family, and we rarely got anything for Christmas. My mom felt that we needed to be around family during the holidays, so we were always forced to go over to families' houses for Christmas and watch the kids have everything we never had. Some of my worst childhood memories were waking up on Christmas Day to nothing. We never had a tree or presents to put under it. Always having to hear my younger siblings cry from disappointment and then being forced to go over to a cousin's house and watch them open their gifts. Watching them get the things I always wanted and toss them aside to never look at them again. Being asked what I got for Christmas and having to decide whether to lie to avoid embarrassing my mom or be honest and have them pity us is not something a child should have to do. At some point, my mom signed us up for these adopt a family/fire truck to bring gifts/whatever charity you could think of, just like the one my job is doing. She did this for years, I know because I was usually with her when she signed us up, and no one ever came through for us, ever. So it's safe to say that I feel some kind of way about these so-called charities and learned a couple of things early in life. I vowed never to contribute to these things because no one cared about me and my siblings. So why should I care for anyone else this time of year? Why should I go out of my way to help when we were never helped? People metaphorically said, fuck your mom and her kids, so F them and their kids. So, back to my coworker. I told her that these people are not my responsibility and that if she felt so strongly about it, she should grab an extra card off the board. I know I shouldn't have said that, but the anger in me just spilled over. She then replied that I didn't have to be a Grinch, to which I said, if you keep harassing me about what I choose not to celebrate, then it will become an HR issue. Now, she dropped it. I don't feel bad for what I said, and I stand by how I feel. But honestly, it kills me how self-righteous people can be about these things. Most just do it to make themselves feel better and think they changed a child's life with a $10 Walmart gift card. But I overheard some talking about the incident, and it put me in a bad light. I know I don't owe anyone an explanation, but I didn't like being talked about like that without any context. AITAH for how I responded? Edit. I think some people are missing the point here. My job has adopted one family, and the cards are a number of different things they want. So for the people saying that I'm ruining some kids' Christmas, you're wrong. They're getting stuff from everyone else, just not me. Also, just because I choose not to donate to random strangers, like most people choose not to do, doesn't mean I don't give back in other ways. My family is my priority, and they will be provided for first and foremost. That taught me that me and mine will never come before anyone else's family. They didn't owe us anything, and I'm simply adopting that same mindset. Anyone else who says otherwise is lying. My nieces and nephews will never know the hurt my siblings and I felt over the holidays. And finally, I work hard for my money, so I'm going to spend it how I like and on whom I like. I just find it funny that some of you are so damn sanctimonious and hypocritical. How often do you donate, especially in this economy? Also, how often do you donate to poor children outside of the holiday season? As someone in the comments mentioned, there's more than just the holiday season when poor kids need things. AITAH for accidentally revealing my boss's affair during the office Secret Santa exchange. I, 29 female, work in a small office where we always do a Secret Santa gift exchange. This year, I drew my boss, Rachel, 42 female. She's always been really sweet to me, so I wanted to make her gift thoughtful. Rachel frequently mentions her husband and their shared love of hiking, so I got her a fancy pair of hiking boots and a gift card to an outdoor gear store. During the exchange, she opened my gift, and I made a joking comment like, hopefully your husband doesn't already have these boots, or you two can match. Her face turned bright red, and the room got super awkward. I thought maybe she just didn't like the gift, but later that day, one of my co-workers, Dan, 34 male, who I'm casually friendly with, pulled me aside and said, you know Rachel isn't hiking with her husband, right? I had no idea what he was talking about, so he spilled that Rachel's been having an affair with Steve, 45 male, another manager in our office, and they've been sneaking away on hiking trips together. Apparently, it's been an open secret among a few co-workers, but I genuinely had no clue. My match with your husband joke unintentionally exposed their whole situation because now Rachel thinks someone told me about the affair and that I was making a passive-aggressive dig. The fallout has been insane. Rachel has been cold toward me ever since, and Steve won't even make eye contact. Meanwhile, the office gossip has exploded, and I feel like everyone's whispering about it. A couple of co-workers said I should have been more careful with my joke, but others think Rachel and Steve brought this on themselves. AITAH for unknowingly exposing my boss's affair with an innocent Secret Santa comment? Next story. Peed my pants. My BF wouldn't help me. So, I had a vaginal birth nearly 3 years ago, and since then, I've dealt with stress incontinence. Today, I was in class taking an exam. I had to pee so badly but couldn't leave until it was done. When I finally finished, I ended up peeing my pants, and it leaked as I rushed to the bathroom. I refused to leave the bathroom until I had another outfit, but my boyfriend refused to help me. I asked him to buy sweats from the university gift shop, but he refused at first until I sent him money. I asked to borrow it. Even after that, he said he wanted me to walk to the restroom door. I told him my pants were covered in pee and there was no way I could do that. He claimed he wouldn't walk into the women's restroom. I suggested he hand the clothes to a girl going into the restroom, but he refused. Eventually, he left the sweats outside the restroom door, and I had to walk out in my pee-soaked pants to grab them. I'm furious with him. Do I have a right to be? Our next story is: I told him I'm gay. I'm a straight male in my 20s, living in an area of Florida that's known for its retiree population, even among Floridians. This is where native Floridians go to retire. As such, there is a disproportionately high number of racist, homophobic, and sexist old people running around my area. I work at a local library, so I have to put up with their abuse on a daily basis. Like I said, I'm straight. I promise that's relevant. I also wear earrings, like a lot of them, and necklaces, bracelets, and rings. My nose isn't pierced yet, but I'm planning on it soon. Same for tattoos. I've been told I look like a punk rocker on a permanent Hawaiian vacation. This is not a look that certain people appreciate, but I don't care. Part of the appeal of looking how I do is pissing off people who look down on anyone who's other. One morning, a few months back, I was in a grocery store before my morning commute. I was just grabbing a donut and chocolate milk to have a driving breakfast. I'm waiting patiently in line, minding my own business, when a voice from behind me says, "Take that metal out your ears, boy. You look like a homo." I turn around and see an old guy who probably should have died of old age before I was born. Working with the public, and dressing in a manner most of them find distasteful, I get this kind of abuse all the time. At work, I can't say or do anything unless they get really rude, but now I finally had a chance, and I decided to take advantage of it. My first instinct was to lay into him, but I had to get going, and I knew that was the reaction he wanted. Instead, I pretended to misunderstand him. I smiled at him and said, "Thank you. My boyfriends love it. They think I'm so cute." He didn't respond or leave or anything. He just kind of looked at me with his mouth open. I gave him a big smile and turned away. He didn't say or do anything else, but when I got up to the cashier, he smiled and said, "You do look really cute." I wish I had turned around to see the boomer's response, but unfortunately, I didn't think to at the time. Next story: AITAH for refusing to financially support my parents anymore after seeing how they spend the money. I, 27 female, have a really good job in tech, and I make a good chunk of money. I've been able to pay off my student loans, save for a house, and even treat myself now and then. I know I'm lucky, especially compared to my parents, who have struggled financially for as long as I can remember. My mom stays at home, and my stepdad works, but they've always been bad with money, maxing out credit cards, taking out loans they can't pay back, that kind of thing. A few months ago, they came to me saying they were falling behind on rent and bills. They seemed desperate, and I felt guilty because I can afford to help. So I agreed to send them $1,600 a month to help them get back on their feet. At first, I didn't think much about it. I trusted they were using it responsibly. But then, I visited them last week, and the first thing I saw was a brand new flat-screen TV in the living room. There were other new things too: a designer bag, a fancy coffee machine, and they casually mentioned ordering takeout almost every night because my mom doesn't like to cook anymore. When I asked how they could afford all of this, my mom shrugged and said, "Oh, we just wanted to enjoy ourselves a little. Life's short." That really upset me because I've been giving them money thinking it was going toward rent and utilities, not luxuries. I tried to bring it up calmly, but my stepdad got defensive, saying, "It's our money once you give it to us, so why do you care?" My mom then started laying on the guilt, saying how much they sacrificed for me growing up and how it's my turn to step up and help. I told them I wasn't going to send them any more money if they couldn't use it responsibly. Since then, they've been calling me constantly, leaving guilt-trippy messages about how I'm abandoning them. Even some extended family members have chimed in, saying I'm being selfish because I'm so well off and it's my duty to help my parents. I feel torn. I don't want to see them struggle, but I also can't keep throwing money at them when they're spending it on things they don't need. I've worked hard to get where I am, and it feels like they're taking advantage of that. Next story. AITAH for telling my mother-in-law she failed as a mother and as a grandmother when she shared my husband's childhood trauma with my little girl. 35-year-old female. My husband Nate, 36, and I have 2 baby girls together, 6 and 4. I met Nate in college and have been with him since I was 20. My husband prides himself on being strong and won't discuss his feelings unless I pry. He's very protective of me and our girls and likes to take care of us in every way he can. When I was in middle school, I was molested by my dad's friend. I'm not ashamed, but it's also something I've only discussed with a few close friends and my family. I opened up to Nate about what happened to me after we'd been dating for around 2 years, and I remember he had a very strong emotional reaction to learning about my abuse. He got teary, it was the first time I'd seen him cry, and told me he wanted to kill the guy. He also told me that he understood how hard that was for me, and so he's determined to make sure nothing like that ever happens to me again. I asked what he meant, but he wouldn't elaborate further. I always had this comment in the back of my mind, but I didn't want to push him into telling me about something he wasn't ready to talk about. The year we got engaged, we spent Christmas with his family. My mother-in-law and I both had way too much to drink and were sitting and talking in the living room. Out of the blue, my Mill asked me if Nate told me what happened to him when he was little. I said no, and she started crying and telling me that someone hurt him very badly and I needed to talk to him about it. Nate was rightfully furious when he heard this. He said that he was over what happened and didn't want to worry me unnecessarily. I told him that he didn't need to share anything, but I'd selfishly like to know what his mom was talking about so I could support him. He said he didn't need support, but told me that he was molested and raped when he was in 2nd grade. I told him I was so sorry and that I was there if he ever wanted to talk to someone about it. Nate told me that he doesn't like to talk about what happened because it sounds worse than it was and that he doesn't like to upset people unnecessarily. We've talked about what happened to him twice since, but he really is resistant to letting me support him or acknowledging that it hurt him in any way. He also always tells me that what happened to him wasn't as serious as what happened to me because it's different for guys, which I obviously don't agree with. My mother-in-law is an entirely different story. On several occasions, usually after drinking, she's raised the assault with me. She shared a lot with me, including some of the more personal details about the abuse and the fact that he was withdrawn and had night terrors for years after it happened. She's asked me if the abuse still impacts him, specifically, if he has nightmares or has trouble enjoying sex. I was very uncomfortable with these questions, but always said I hadn't noticed anything. I admittedly let this go on for longer than I should have because I had conflicting feelings about what I should do in this situation. On one hand, I know this was difficult for my mother-in-law, and I wanted to support her in whatever way I could. On the other, I felt strange about the fact that I knew more about the situation than my husband realized and felt that my mother-in-law's sharing sessions were a major violation of his privacy. I finally worked up the courage to tell my mother-in-law that I'm glad she trusts me with this information, but I feel guilty hearing about the situation from anyone other than my husband. I explained that he's very private about it, and I feel like these conversations are an invasion of his privacy. My mother-in-law got teary and said Nate's just ashamed and doesn't feel comfortable talking about it because he's a man and doesn't want to be perceived as weak, especially by me. I told her I don't necessarily disagree, but I want him to have control over the situation and what he shares with me. My mother-in-law, to her credit, seemed to understand and stopped talking about the abuse with me. Last weekend, my oldest daughter had a sleepover with her grandparents. The night we picked her up, she started crying when I was getting her ready for bed. She told me that her grandmother told her that someone hurt her daddy when he was little and that it made him very sad. My mother-in-law told her that the person touched his private parts and said that some adults who seem nice are bad and want to hurt kids. My daughter expressed fear that someone may hurt her, and is even more upset about the fact that someone hurt her dad. I told my daughter that her dad is safe and happy now, and that the things that happened in the past aren't for her to worry about. I calmed her down, but my daughter is still scared, sad, and confused about the situation. When I told my husband what happened, he was devastated. He told me that he doesn't want her to worry about him and that he wants to be strong for our little girls. I told him that we all know he's strong and he has nothing to be embarrassed about, but my husband kept saying that his mom humiliated him by sharing this with me and our child. I asked how he wanted to handle his mother, and he was too overwhelmed to even think about it. Yesterday, my mother-in-law called about getting together with the kids again soon. I immediately asked why she thought it was appropriate to share deeply personal information about Nate with my 6-year-old. My mother-in-law said that my daughter needs to know that bad things can happen to kids and how to keep herself safe. I said that not only is it my job to teach her those things, but also, I can teach her to set boundaries and communicate with me without sharing her dad's trauma. I said that not only is my child afraid and sad, but my husband is embarrassed that his daughter knows about his assault. My mother-in-law then said I was feeding into his embarrassment by repeatedly suggesting it's something that shouldn't be shared with me or my daughters. She said that I'm validating his fears that he has something to be ashamed of and that he's less of a man by encouraging the secrecy. I told her that I'm not doing anything aside from letting him take the lead on what he wants to share and not talking to others about his trauma. She started crying and said I was failing as a wife by not encouraging him to talk about the abuse and insisting he go to therapy. She also said I'm failing as a mother by not educating my daughter and leaving her vulnerable to predators. I'm not proud of this, but I completely snapped. I told my mother-in-law that maybe the reason he doesn't talk about the abuse is because she falls apart anytime the subject comes up. I said that the few times he's opened up about the abuse, he's too busy convincing me he's fine to let me comfort him or let himself process his feelings. I said I blame her for this impulse since he's had to be strong for her so she doesn't lose it for his entire life. I also told her that she's failing as a grandmother by repeatedly violating her son and daughter-in-law's boundaries and teaching her grandkids that's okay. My mother-in-law said I have no idea what it's like when your child is hurt in the worst way possible and says she sincerely hopes I never have to experience that. She then said it's even worse to be the mother than a victim and that I have zero empathy for her. I said she was making it difficult to sympathize with her and hung up the phone. I do feel badly that I said she failed as a mom and a grandma even though she started it. I know it's a sensitive topic and I could have handled it better. But also, I was so angry. I told my husband what happened, but he's reached his emotional capacity at this point. I told him I'd fix it and am considering apologizing to my mother-in-law just to take the stress off of him. AITAH, for how I handled the situation? I'd appreciate any advice. That's it for now. See you in the next post.